So what can fans here look forward to most about Salem?
I think everything. I think Salem. I remember we were genuinely surprised, at least with Nikita, that it was a Comic-Con thing. I don't think we really expected that to be have our own panels and things like that. That was kind of unique. With Salem, though, I had a strong feeling when that went to series that if it was successful, that we would have a con presence at some point. And it was great. It was great in the States, and we want to get it out here. And I think that once it gets out here, the fans are truly going to enjoy it. I mean, it's got a little bit of everything. It's a genre piece. It's based off of real events. It's got the horror element, the sex element, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, I guess, for the 1690s. For me, I would watch it, absolutely, if I wasn't in it. That would be a show. Being a fan of that genre, I would definitely check it out. At least check it out, And we got very fortunate with being kind of grassroots with the new network of WGN and trying to be their first show, and the poster art's been phenomenal. I'm so used to being on network television, if I do television, with things being rated PG or less. It's been really nice to be part of cable and see what they can actually do. Getting Marilyn Manson for our theme song was a trip. Knowing the guy now is a trip. Just that kind of stuff, and them truly committing to the show and actually having WGN and Fox 21 Studios. Maybe they're fighting all the time behind the scenes. I have no idea, but we would never be able to tell on the day. It's a true commitment to trying to make this show special.
And for UK fans who haven't had a chance to discover the show yet, can you tell us a bit about your character and where he fits into the world of Salem?
Yeah, I play John Alden. And a lot of these characters on Salem were real people back in the day. We stick as close as we can historically to the happenings and the things that were going on at the time, and then obviously put our fictional take on it. But John is kind of like the Rock, the normal guy on this series, not the Rock the wrestler, but like he is the solid presence in town, whereas everyone else is pretty much out of their damn mind. So he's really the first all-American hero is how I like to put it. I mean, he's kind of the John Wayne before John Wayne was even around. He's kind of the original cowboy in that sense before there were cowboys. And he was stuck in war, and he comes back to find the whole town of Salem has lost their minds, and he's lost the love of his life to one of his arch enemies, and he decides to fight to get his town back, and when he could easily have run away. And of course, by the end of season 1, that all changes too. So we'll get to that, I guess, when season 2 starts. But
I mean, you mentioned there's some of the other characters that, like you say, have all clearly lost their minds in season 1. Yeah. Can you just walk us through some of the other characters and who you find most interesting to work with or kind of play against?
Well, I mean, we have a very colorful cast. I mean, with Mary Sibley and Cotton Mather, and these all being instrumental characters in American history as well. I think Mary Sibley and John Alden are kind of the heartbeat of the story in the sense that a lot of the characters kind of go in and around that. And Mary Sibley is John Alden's the love of his life and has now become a witch, and she's one of the head witches in that coven, unbeknownst to John Alden, her ex-lover. So in the story where you have all these crazy elements, genre elements and horror going on, whether it's witches, zombies, supernatural, things like that, the heartbeat in the middle is that there's also a love story, and I think that kind of connects fans that want something that's more of a story rather than something that's just physical. Cotton Mather, he is played by Seth Gable, who I love working with everyone on the show, but there's a good rapport between Cotton and John, and Cotton's the Reverend's son, and he's the one who's really making most of the people in the town of Salem afraid of witches and of the supernatural and things like that. It's a great character for him to play, and I mean, really for myself, I mean, the scenes that I have with Mary Sibley, which is Janet Montgomery, who's wonderful, being able to play off of her has been great. And Seth Gable, who plays Cotton Mather, is just so different than my character. So being able to play the Laurel and Hardy, so to speak, the Tweedledee and Tweedledum, kind of just coming from different, you know, backgrounds and different opinions and different lives, but from the same town has been a blast, really. I
mean, obviously, we've seen so many kind of mainstream shows embracing the supernatural in all its different forms and iterations. What do you think sets Salem apart? Where do you think it kind of takes its place amongst all this other kind of similar sort of stuff?
Salem is one of the few shows, if the only one, if not the only one, that truly takes place during that time period. There are those shows that flash back. There are other shows that don't, that are in the present. We're really the only one committed, I feel, to this time. It makes things difficult for filming. It makes things difficult, obviously, for setting things up. But we've built a town, which I used to think is what they did for the old series Deadwood. But one of our producers is from Deadwood and said that ours is much bigger. But we've actually built the town of Salem in a small town in Louisiana. That's magnificent. I mean, it's something I've never seen. And the commitment I think that we have to the reality and fantasy, I don't believe is done by any other show on television at all. And I don't have a problem saying that. We are very confident in what we're doing. We have an incredible Bible of where we can go for the next, I think, at least 3 seasons. And I think it's hard, like, to, especially if you just see a poster, or if you haven't seen a series and just seen a review and certain things like that. You really got to watch these shows to see what stands apart. And I feel like we've been kind of we're the first show on WGN, but kind of a perfect way to start to rebrand their network.
I mean, you mentioned that there's lots of different places you could go, and hopefully we can have many more series. For you personally, what are you most interested to see for your character and the show overall, looking to the future?
Well, the way the season 1 ends has certainly opened up season 2. It already in one season may have to change its title. There's a lot of people leaving town. There's a lot of people possibly dead. So I mean, for me, the way it ends, you know, I'm kind of taken away by the Native American tribe that saved my life pre-season 1 of Salem. I would love to see what happens with John living with the tribe for a while. I'd love to see where they could go. Aesthetically, with however they can make him look, and also what it would dredge up from his past. I think we'll get into a little bit more of we're gonna, I think, solidify John Alden's backstory a little bit more in season 2. When that might happen, I'm not sure, because we don't have to film for another couple months, but we're going through the process right now, and I'd really like to see. I mean, I've already seen where we've established John and Mary's relationship and what has happened to them and what will happen to them in the future. So now it's more backstories of maybe John's life and his parents, which we didn't establish in the first season.
You've got the new show Salem, and then Maggie Q has her new show Stalker. Mm-hmm. Have either of you talked about guest starring on each other's shows?
No, we haven't. Well, Stalker was even more recent. No, we haven't. We've crossed paths briefly, but I had 1 month off before I went to shoot Salem. So, in Salem being filmed in Louisiana, I wasn't in Shreveport, Louisiana. I wasn't anywhere near New York or Los Angeles, so we haven't been able to do that, but it would be fun to do someday. Sorry.
Basically, with Salem being like quite American-based because it's there, like we don't really hear too much about it. You have to go off the beaten path to hear about things like the witch trials. So where did you originally hear from it? Is it a big historical thing in the States? It
is a big historical thing. One of our more concerns in the beginning, it wasn't mine, but I guess it was the creators' concerns, was our take on the Salem witch trials, which is one of the biggest American tragedies, I guess, of us against ourselves kind of thing, like the Civil War in a sense. But it was a tough time that a lot of people apparently don't like to dredge up and talk about again. And it was our fantastical take on that. For me, I grew up and, learned about it in history. It is tragic. It's crazy, but it's very unique and it's very interesting. But it's a time of people coming to a new world and being afraid and suddenly being able to government their own world and their own towns and their own villages and not knowing what to do with that. And, it's a very big thing that's historical that has only been done a few times and not done in the way that we're doing it beyond the Crucible. But I think it's kind of cool to get that out there. And there's certain things that you learn. I learned that the witches, at least in North America, weren't burned at the stake. So we haven't had any burnings. It's been mainly hangings or stonings and things like that. And there's a lot of things. It's a big legend at this point. So when it becomes a legend, certain things turn almost into a fable, and then there's certain things that come out there that aren't even true. So we're trying to stick to, while still having actual monsters and things like that, trying to stick to the realism as much as we can. So far, no burnings, but we'll see.